Watchman News, and I'm Mike Callahan. So I've seen some posts on social media over the last couple of days from individuals that live up in northern Illinois, like around the Carroll Stream area, Chicago kind of area. And they've been talking about all this crap that was on their cars. And, there were some people commenting on his status saying, one of them in particular, saying that, well, it's pollen, it's every year. And this guy's like, no, this is not the pollen that we get every year. And many other people were echoing the very same sentiments, that this was not the same thing. Well, the interesting thing is I just got done watching two videos here live on the show with Old Marine 1, and he had showed it on his. Now, he's from like Muncie, Indiana. Okay, so this stuff, whatever it is traveling across states. Okay, this is traveling across states. This is not an isolated little bitty thing. He also put it under a microscope in a second video. His channel's called Old Marine Vaughn, if you want to go check out his two videos on it. And it looked like it was metallic in nature underneath of a microscope, which I found to be very, very interesting. So I'm sitting here thinking as these videos are playing, and I'm like, wow, that reminds me of an article that I had seen posted today in a Facebook page for Angry American, the gentleman that wrote the books that I love so much. And I thought, wow, just the thought that they could be connected is inconceivable. So let's go there. Bill Gates thinks a coming disease could kill 30 million people within 6 months and says we should prepare for it as we do war. Now, why this stands out so much to me is because they want the forced vaccinations. They want the implant RFID chips. Okay, they want the hard martial law. We've been under a soft version of martial law for a long time. But they want actual martial law. They want to come up with whatever reason why they need to disarm the American public and destroy the republic. It's crazy. But let's go ahead and let's read the article here. And by the way, who else would know more whether or not we had something like this coming than Bill Gates? Think about that. If there's one thing that we know from history, it's that a deadly new disease will arise and spread around the globe. That could happen easily within the next decade, and as Bill Gates told listeners on Friday at a discussion about epidemics hosted by the Massachusetts Medical Society and the New England Journal of Medicine, we're not ready. Gates acknowledged that he's usually the optimist in the room, reminding people that we're lifting children out of poverty around the globe and getting better at eliminating diseases like polio and malaria. But there's one area, though, where the world isn't making much progress, Gates said, and that's pandemic preparedness. The likelihood that such a disease will appear continues to rise. New pathogens emerge all the time as the world population increases and humanity encroaches on wild environments. It's becoming easier and easier for individual people or small groups to create weaponized diseases that could spread like wildfire around the globe. According to Gates, a small non-state actor could build an even deadlier form of smallpox in a lab. And our interconnected world, people are always hopping on planes, crossing from cities on one continent to those on another in a matter of hours. Gates presented a simulation by the Institute for Disease Modeling that found that a new flu like the one that killed 50 million people in the 1918 pandemic would now most likely kill 30 million people within 6 months. And the disease that next takes us by surprise is likely to be one we see for the first time at the start of an outbreak, like what happened recently with SARS and MERS viruses. If you were to tell the world's government that weapons that could kill 30 million people were under construction right now, there'd be a sense of urgency about preparing for the threat, Gates said. In the case of biological threats, that sense of urgency is lacking, he said. The world needs to prepare for pandemics in the same serious way it prepares for war. The one time the military tried a sort of simulated war game against a smallpox pandemic, the final score was smallpox 1, humanity 0, Gates said. But he reiterated that he's an optimist, saying he thinks we could better prepare for the next viral or bacterial threat. In some ways, we're better prepared now than we were for previous pandemics. We have antiviral drugs that can in many cases do at least something to improve survival rates. We have an antibiotic that can treat secondary infections like pneumonia associated with the flu. We're also getting closer to a universal flu vaccine, Gates announced on Friday that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation would offer $12 million in grants to encourage its development. And we're getting better at rapid diagnosis too, which is essential as the first step toward fighting a new disease is quarantine. Just this week, a new research paper in the journal Science touted the development of a way to use the gene editing technology CRISPR to rapidly detect diseases and identify them using the same sort of paper strip used in a home pregnancy test. But we're not yet good enough to rapidly identifying the threat from a disease and coordinating a response, as the global reaction to the latest Ebola epidemic showed. There needs to be better communication between militaries and governments to help coordinate responses, Gates said. And he thinks government need ways to quickly enlist the help of private sector when it comes to developing technology and tools to fight an emerging deadly disease. Melinda Gates recently said that the threat of a global pandemic, whether it emerges naturally or is engineered, was perhaps the biggest risk to humanity. Think of the number of people who leave New York City every day and go all over the world. We're an interconnected world, she said. Those connections make us all vulnerable. Like I say, who else would know better about that? Now, trust me, I do not trust Bill Gates for a second. I do not trust Bill Gates, not for anything. And I would say these people, if they were to give out warnings, right, then it's something we might want to pay attention to. I don't know if there could be possibly any connection to this and the stuff falling on the cars in the northern part of the Midwest, but it's certainly something to consider in light of it all. Thanks for watching the video. As always, God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit. We'll talk to you soon.